We do these webinars every Friday at noon, and it's just a way for us to introduce various professionals to speak on topics that are near and dear to their hearts, and it's relevant to all of those who are listening. Today, I get the pleasure of introducing Dr. Jessica Smith. Jessica Smith, MD, is a board-certified pediatrician who is currently practicing at HealthStar Physicians at Westgate Family Medicine. She graduated from medical school at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences and completed her pediatric residency at Arkansas Children's Hospital. She moved to Hot Springs in 2019 and has enjoyed building her family and her practice in such a wonderful community. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Jessica Smith.
Everybody, thank you for the introduction, Caitlin, and thank you for having me to talk to you guys today. I get the pleasure of talking about Halloween safety now that we are in 2020. There are some things that are consistent with how we've done Halloween safety in the past, and there are obviously some big changes this year as to what we're recommending in this season. So I'd like to kind of start off by saying all of my recommendations have mostly come from the CDC and World Health Organizations, and kind of following the group that I'm in with the Academy of Pediatrics, their recommendations. And I added a few things in, kind of some personal views and community activities that I feel like may be good opportunities for those of you who are parents or might have young children out there. So I would also be open to any questions at the end of the presentation if you guys have anything that you would like for me to speak on. So in this season, we have a lot of stress as parents. We're expected to kind of do the right thing on top of already having a big list of parenting responsibilities. We now have the stress of teaching our kids how to social distance, wear masks in certain situations, and then also explaining reasons that, we may not be able to do typical traditions that we may have, bobbing for apples or, kind of having some times that things are just different this year, as well as in every other setting. I still feel it's very important for kids to have that sense of, being able to have as many consistencies that they can. So I find it near and dear to my heart, to keep the family traditions that we can, but also keeping in perspective and trying to add ways that we can find creative traditions or, new festivities that as a family will be able to impact kids in a positive way. So I've listed a few things, that may be some good activities to add during this Halloween season or fall season. And some of those being outdoor activities and indoor activities, just kind of combining a list of things that you might be able to enjoy with your kids during this time. So to start with, there are some outdoor stuff that things like even the CDC saying, these might be some good ideas. So pumpkin patches outdoors, while they can be a little bit crowded, especially around this time, if you do have older kids who are able to wear a mask and understand the social distancing aspect, this is still a good opportunity to kind of be able to enjoy maybe a tradition that your family may have, along with corn mazes. Another really good one is carving or decorating pumpkins outside with the family and having a pumpkin decorating contest. So I think these are things that kids really would enjoy. And, the other thing I really want to stress is that I feel it's important as a parent to kind of not view things, if your family decides not to go trick-or-treating this year because of COVID-19, I think it's important that we come at it from not a loss mentality, meaning that not being down or, being overly apologetic that, this is the season that we're in, because the more positive and the more creative outlets that we can give to our children, it kind of makes it less of a, like I said, a loss mentality and more of a, idea of let's still have a great time even though these obstacles are in our way. So um, that's an idea of, things, the traditions may change, but overall, really the kids are going to remember the good times and not the things that they didn't go trick-or-treating for a year or so. I think these would create good memories regardless. Some other indoor activities, if it is extra cold outside or rainy, good ideas would be a family movie night, getting together and letting the kids choose a good spooky movie, an indoor scavenger hunt. You could kind of come up with a little competition if you have multiple kids or you have other kids that your kids have been around, and creating a little a scavenger hunt around the house, whether that be hiding candy or pumpkins or those kinds of things. And there's multiple games that are out there. One of them is the toilet paper mummies. I just thought that was so cute. I think that would be something fun that kids would enjoy, to say the least. And then another idea is just kind of making a little spooky meal, whether that getting the kids involved with it, and getting their creative minds going with cookie decorating or pizza making, were just a couple ideas. And then these other little Halloween snacks I thought were cute too. And Pinterest has plenty out there, in addition to what I'm posting on here too. So for the next slide, trick-or-treating, the CDC isn't necessarily recommending against it. If this is something that you're passionate about and you really want to continue this tradition, what we're saying is, let's make it as safe as possible. And so I've just kind of listed some of the recommendations that the CDC makes this year in order to keep your kids safe. And basically what that says is trying to avoid as much direct contact with trick-or-treaters, and most of it being outdoors instead of kind of going right up to the doorstep. If you can have like an outdoor way of kids being able to get the treats, and only, not accepting it, the homemade treats, and making sure they're kind of individually bagged. And of course, washing your hands before eating the treats. Also, wearing a mask is going to be recommended for kids 2 and older, and that does not just count as like a mask in a costume. We're talking, kind of like either a cloth or surgical mask. And then, of course, respecting social distance, which I feel like kids are actually they're getting pretty smart about it, honestly, with schools having these kinds of rules as well. I think kids have been very mindful, and I've been very, no, I shouldn't say surprised, but I've been very, it's been eye-opening how well these kids have really been able to follow the rules and adapt in such a, challenging time. So the moral of this story with the trick-or-treating, outdoors is safer than indoors, and trying not to stay in contact prolonged with anybody, especially without a mask, because you are more likely, if there is a bug that's going to be passed, it's going to be in close contact. So I have a couple other slides basically, and kind of going over the mask recommendations. Like I said, a costume mask is not a substitute, and do not wear a costume mask over a cloth mask because it can actually make breathing a little bit more difficult. And then the last thing, like I said, kids 2 and older, under 2, it's not recommended for them to wear a mask. So I would say in that situation, it would be very important for them to make sure that they're socially distancing and nobody's getting too close contact with those children. Some good things to do if you did decide to go trick-or-treating is to bring some hand sanitizer with you, using at least 60% alcohol, and then supervising, especially young children, using it. I have seen hand sanitizer go straight into the mouth of children in my clinic, so it happens easily, and it's why it's so important to have supervision. And then nothing replaces hand washing, soap and water, have them sing a song. Happy birthday works great. And especially before, if they were to eat or, partake in the candies after the trick-or-treating, washing your hands is going to be very important. And then I'd like to kind of wrap it up. I did a little research on trying to find out some things that are going within our community, because from what I understand, most people are around the Hot Springs area. That may not be true, but I know that's kind of where the group is from. So I just kind of had a few things to add in there, ideas of things going on. One of those is the Family Farm Pumpkin Patch. It's open through November 1st. So they have a lot of outdoor fun activities. You can go pick pumpkins. They have some games there. That would be something fun as a family to do. And then it's actually today, Friday, October 30th. The fire department in Hot Springs is doing a drive-by trick-or-treat at 6 p.m. And so that would be something to take your kids to. That might be fun, an outdoor outing to do. And then Garvin Gardens has fall celebrations in Saturdays in October. So the Halloween celebration is tomorrow. Outdoors, I think they're giving out, if you like, Halloween prizes to the first, maybe I think it was 100 or so that did pay the entry fee. But that was another thing I found. And then there's a lot of local churches that are doing kind of outdoor trunk or treats. That may be a good idea, and still practicing all the things we kind of talked about with the trick-or-treating safety. But if you're looking for something to do in the community, here's a few things that I found. There may be more out there. But yes, so like I said, all my information came from the CDC. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be open to talking with you all.
Dr. Smith, thank you so much.
Yes.
I know that your schedule is really busy, so I really appreciate you taking the time out to visit with us today. So one question that I do have for you is, I know that there's a lot of people who talk about dangerous candies for kids. So what would be your recommendations for like age-appropriate candies, as well as knowing when something's really candy and when something's not, especially when going to strangers?
Yes, that's a great question. So I'd like to avoid, anything that's hard candy, small candies, and kiddos, especially usually up to school aged, honestly. And there can be choking hazards, especially the hard spherical or suckers that can sometimes be choking hazards for those kids. Anything that's package that has been ripped or that's out of the package, it's recommended not to dispose of those. In addition to that, if your instinct tells you your kid might choke on it, the answer is usually yes. So limiting those types of candies that your child is going to try to take, I think would be a good idea.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Smith, I have a quick question for you. This is John Herfel. Last week we had the superintendent from Hot Springs School District on our Zoom webinar, and she told us that pretty much all of the students and kids in her school district were doing very well, both online and offline in-person instruction. Have you seen many coronavirus cases in the children? The reason why I'm bringing it up is from what I can tell, from daycares to schools, that the numbers are, in my opinion, very low compared to the general population. Do you have any theories as to why that is so?
So there's a lot of different answers out there, and there's still a lot of research being done. So overall, I haven't seen a great number of pediatric cases here, which is really good. I think the schools are doing an excellent job in following guidelines by the Department of Health and the CDC. And like I said, kids are actually being really compliant from what I can tell, which is very encouraging. I think that does play a big role in the numbers, honestly. And then you know, we're still learning a lot about the immunity. We know kids, part of it is, are all the kids getting tested who have symptoms? That's kind of a plus or minus. You don't really, know if every runny nose in daycare is actually getting swabbed to test for COVID, because that's something that is very common, especially this time of year. So while I have done, and Health Star in general has done quite a bit of testing on pediatrics, I mean, the numbers, the percentages, you can tell kids have not been the primary source of COVID. And I think that goes across the country, and looking at the number of cases and things like that. So to answer your question, I think that there may be an immune, kids are exposed to a lot of different viruses and may have, a robust response as far as trying to fight off COVID if they are exposed, or it's not replicating enough for us to be able to test and know if they're positive or not. So overall, I think, like I said, I'm encouraged by the numbers. Honestly, I really am. I was worried at the beginning of all this. I will be honest. I was very worried, and I still maintain a sense of, we need to protect them as much as we can, because not only are we worried about the kids' health, but we're also worried about exposure to grandparents and other people with chronic medical conditions, because those are really the ones that seem to be suffering complications the most. So that's why I'm still very very apt to test kids when they have symptoms or exposures, even though those numbers are low.
Excellent. Thank you. Not really a question, more of a comment. I got to visit with my family doctor, Kevin Hale, on Monday, and he had a lot of good things to say about you as being one of the most gifted pediatricians in their network and so forth. So,
well, that is so nice.
I can attest to that too. Dr. Smith is the doctor for my two children, and we are very thankful for her, especially with our newest addition, who'll be a year old in December. Dr. Smith has been her primary doctor her whole life, and so we are very thankful for her and some of the things that she's caught for us so that we can be proactive about fighting. So,
well, thank you guys. I love taking care of the babies. So
that's also very encouraging what you said about the pediatrics is one of the lower ones to, like, they haven't had as many outbreaks of COVID. So I'm like you, I was terrified when all this happened, when it all came about. So that's very encouraging for me as well. All right, so are there any more questions? All right. Well, thank you all again so much for joining. And Dr. Smith, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and what you do, and all the healthcare workers in your building. Like, we could not even express our gratitude in words. So thank you so much for all that y'all are doing.
of course, thank you for having me today.
Yes, of course. Next week we'll be hosting Mr. Ian O'Shea from Columbia Threadneedle, and he's going to be talking about the stock market after the election and his predictions for after the election. So again, we have these webinars every Friday at noon. Everyone is free to join us on that. And thank you so much for your time today.